Okay, so how many of you have ever tried to change, right? That's probably all of us. But how many of you have felt that it wasn't really successful, that you didn't really manage to complete your goal, and you somehow you felt that you failed, right? You see my hands up too, right? All of us, we try to change, and oftentimes we're not really successful. We think we're going to be successful, but we're not successful. So let's go back 2 months ago. I call this stage 1. You're living your life. Every once in a while, you either have to change because somebody is requiring you to change, or you want to change. But most of the time, you don't do it, or if you do it because you have to, you complain about it. You cry, you get angry, you tell other people how difficult it is, and you feel like a victim. Most people, I'm going to make this assertion, did not live their life to its fullest before Corona. I would even consider myself to be included in that category. Okay, so stage 2, we had to change, and the emphasis is on we had to change. We went from living our lives and doing what we do in a normal day-to-day routine. We worked, our children went to kindergarten, our kids went to school. We would see our parents, we would take care of ourselves in the best way that we could. So, we had a normal life. We had to change, and the emphasis is on we had to. So there was an external thing that happened, and we were forced to change. Now, kindergartens were closed, schools were closed. A lot of us had to work from home, and many of us, we lost a lot of things. Some people lost friends. Some people lost family members and loved ones. A lot of us actually didn't necessarily lose somebody personally, but we know of people who lost family members. A lot of people lost their livelihood. A lot of people lost a sense of freedom. And the general feeling about it was that there was depression, anxiety, people got angry. We felt like we were victims because we certainly didn't ask for this change. And yet there were those people who used this opportunity to soar. They looked at their life and said, oh, I have some extra time now. I can change something that I couldn't change before, or I'm going to use this time to soar. I was listening to the radio the other day, a German radio station, and I was listening to a story that was told by a priest, and he said that he used this time to actually clean up his little cell. And as he experienced himself working more and more in isolation, he realized that, he couldn't really move around, that there were stacks of paper everywhere. And so he made the decision that this was the time that he was finally going to clean up his little cell, which included his office, and so that he could have a better workspace. So a lot of us, we complained, we felt like victims. And some of us, maybe a few of us, decided to use this opportunity to soar and to make a difference. So why is it actually so difficult to change? Why do we often feel like we're struggling and we're not really moving forward? Sometimes I'm going to say the goal is unrealistic. The goal is too large, and it really isn't impossible for us to accomplish it. Sometimes there's a mismatch between our intention, and intention is a positive focus or something that I want in my life, and a goal. So, they don't really line up. Sometimes our values are not really in line with our intentions and or our goals, and so they don't really match. So, and sometimes simply we have no clue. And this is what I would like to talk to you about tonight, the no clue area. And I'm going to assert that the no clue area can be found in the unconscious part of our brain. So let me say that again. The no clue area, the area that describes of why we don't really know why we can't change, even though it's perfectly logic, why we should lose weight, or why we should go to bed earlier, or why it would be a really good idea for us to call our prospects so that we can make more money. We just don't do it. So that no clue area of why we don't want to change, or why we can't, or why it's difficult can be found in the unconscious part of your brain. Now, I know I talk a lot about the brain, and many of you have heard this before, and maybe you're saying, "Oh, Barbara, I've heard this before, and it didn't really make a difference." And so to those of you, I'm going to say, listen to it again with a new set of ears and eyes, because I've told this story about the brain many, many times, and I always am amazed of how true it is and how much information we can really get when we understand the brain more fully. Okay, so the brain, as I like to refer to it, controls everything about you, about us, I should say. It controls your muscle movement and our breathing, our thinking, our feeling, our decision-making process. You decided to listen to my Facebook Live. It was a decision that the brain made. You fell in love. It's a decision that the brain made. You wore that purple shirt that you're wearing. It's a decision that the brain made. You didn't go to sleep. It was decided by your brain. You didn't exercise. It was decided by your brain. So everything that has to do with a person, and that's, everything about us, is decided or comes from the brain. Now, the brain basically has three parts. It has the neocortex, it has the limbic system, and it has the reptilian brain. Now, I'm not a neuroscientist, and I want to let the neuroscientists know that I know this is a very general description of the brain, but I find it helpful because when I put this whole neuroscience stuff into what I would call eighth grade language, something that a 12-year-old can understand, I can understand it, and it makes more sense to me. Okay, let me explain the three parts of the brain. The neocortex is what we would call the smart part of the brain. The smart part of the brain is responsible for anything that has to do with analytics. For example, reading and writing, that's analytics. Understanding, words, anything that has to do with words, and then pictures, because pictures come with words. Language, learning a new language has to do with analytics. Analyzing a spreadsheet, numbers, so rational thinking. All those skills have to do with, who come from the neocortex. Right now you are listening to this Facebook Live and I'm speaking to you, I'm using words. All that is something that the neocortex is very involved with. The neocortex is the only part of the brain that is conscious. By conscious, I mean it's the part of the brain that we can control. So supposedly, we can control our thoughts. We can certainly control our analytical functions. If I'm sitting down with the computer and I am, analyzing something, I can control that. So it is conscious. That's what you need to remember. The other parts of the brain are not so conscious. The next part of the brain that I want to talk about is the limbic system. The limbic system is the part of the brain that creates all of our emotions. And I say create because emotions are a biochemical chain reaction that happen throughout our body. They used to think that it only happens in the brain, like in this part of our body, but really what research showed is that those biochemical chain reaction, those emotions are really all over our entire body. So the limbic system controls the temperature and it creates our emotion. And I say create because it's not voluntarily. When we feel something, it's something that's automatically generated by this part of the brain. So when we say, you can control your feelings, it's actually incorrect. We can control our behavior afterwards, but we can't really control our feelings. I will have an immediate reaction. Remember the last time you got triggered, somebody said something to you and you got your feelings hurt, or, somebody said something to you and you immediately felt good. That is your limbic system automatically producing emotions. Okay. And so it's like you get triggered because you get triggered. Now you can decide what you want to do with that, but it's not like you can like not get triggered unless you have changed something fundamentally about yourself that that I would call, you know, you've rewired yourself, you've healed something about yourself. So the limbic system, like I said earlier, it also controls the temperature. So often what you would find that if you've experienced some extreme emotion is that you have a temperature change. People feel hot, they feel cold. You know, when they get angry, they might feel really hot, or when they're frightened, they might feel really cold. So there's a lot of those two areas really correlate. The last part of the brain is the reptilian brain, and the reptilian brain is the part of the brain that's the oldest part of the brain, and it's the least conscious. You know, we would consider this part of the brain to be very unconscious, and it's the part of the brain where we experience the fight, flight, or freeze. Fight, flight, or freeze. So what does that mean? That means when we sense fear, we will either fight, or we will run away, or we will freeze. So the freeze part, the way you need to envision that is kind of like a deer that is frozen when the headlights of a car are blinding it. That's what we would consider freeze. Fighting and running away, I think are kind of obvious to us. And what you need to know is that we can have different reactions. So it's not like you're one kind of person that you're always fighting or you're always running away. When we are under extreme stress and when we are in danger, or we think we're in danger, that reptilian brain is really, really activated. So right now, when people are losing their livelihood, when people are losing their loved ones, when our freedom has been taken away, when we experience a lack of, you know, maybe I want to buy toilet paper and there's no toilet paper, or I want to buy flour and there's no flour. People, people's reptilian brain are really, really being activated. Now, why is this important, and what does it have to do with change? When I have a goal, okay, my goal always is connected to language, because there's always a sentence or there's a picture that I have. I would say, I want to lose weight. Okay, so that's my neocortex being involved in my goal. When I have a goal, you know, every time that I actually have a thought or I say something, there's an emotion that comes along with it. Sometimes the emotion is very quiet. It's has more of a neutral quality, and oftentimes it has a either positive or a negative emotion. So let's say I say I want to lose weight, and I have an immediate emotion that tells me, oh, you know, I'm not so sure that I can do it. That makes me feel a little bit uncomfortable. I have my first obstacle when it comes to change. It's not an obstacle that I can't overcome, but it's definitely an obstacle. Now, my next response is for my my reptilian brain. My reptilian brain is going to say, well, wait a minute, that's dangerous. Well, the neocortex will say, well, that's not dangerous to lose weight. But for the reptilian system, it's really dangerous. Why? Because you're taking my comfort away. I don't know how to comfort myself any other ways. This is what I look forward to when I had a stressful day. I want my chocolate. I want my cheese. I want my sandwich, whatever it is. I don't want to exercise. I want to watch television. And so, in a sense, your goal that comes from the neocortex, that's perfectly logic, is a threat to the reptilian system. Anything that's a threat to the reptilian system shows up as I'm not going to do it. I'm going to clam up and I am not going to do this goal because it's a threat to my system. Now, I understand that it's not logical, but what you need to understand about yourself is that the reptilian system is the most powerful part of your brain. It will override any willpower, any emotions that you can feel, because when it's threatened, it's threatened. How do we know that this is true? we often do things in order to calm our reptilian brain down. For instance, when we go to a major function, there's usually food involved. We like to, have a glass of wine in our hand as we're greeting new people, or when we go to family gatherings, there's food. Why? Because it calms down the reptilian. The reptilian brain says, oh, there's food, there's sugar, there's candy, I can relax. I'm going to be taken care of. Or at least I do not have to worry about, how am I going to survive because there's food present, and at least I'm going to be distracted with that while I'm at this gathering. Okay, so let me give you another example. I'm sure a lot of you have children, and if you don't have children, think about somebody that you really, 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 really love, and also pretend that you are deathly afraid of water and that you're deathly afraid of swimming. Let's say your child or your loved one falls into the water. What are you going to do? I tell you what you're going to do. Your reptilian brain is going to kick in, and you're going to jump into that water, and you're going to rescue your child or rescue your friend, because the reptilian is going to take over, and it's going to be able to deal with logic and the emotions, because it allows us to do incredible things that we usually are not able to do. Okay, so let's see what else I want to say about this. So how do I get all parts of my brain aligned? Okay, so I lay out this idea for you that there is the limbic system, the neocortex, and the reptilian brain. So how do I get these parts aligned? Now, when it comes to the neocortex, maybe it's pretty simple, because you can say, okay, my neocortex, that's my rational brain. How do I get this aligned with my goals, and so that I can change? Well, you can, for starters, you can listen to yourself. And you think it's easy, but it's really not that easy. So I often suggest that people journal. So when you're journaling, you really get a sense of what you're thinking, because we're thinking all day long, and it's going on rapidly, and sometimes we're not even that present to our thoughts. So start to journal and really listen to yourself. What do you have to say? What do you have to say about this change? Do you want it? Are you choosing it? What can you do to make it easier? How could you make it better? Okay. Don't drown it out with alcohol or Netflix, or, try to multitask while you're, while you're writing about what you're actually thinking. Really take some time to write down what you're thinking. Now, the next part would be the limbic system. How can I get in touch with my limbic system, my emotions? And again, you can be curious. This is also not so easy, because we do not like to feel negative emotions. We don't. We like to feel good. And so when the negative emotions come, what we like to do is we like to drown them out. Okay, so we drown them out so that we don't have to feel them. Once again, you can journal. Journal is really, really powerful, and it can be a great tool for you to actually inquire with yourself. Okay, Barbara, so tell me, how do you feel about losing weight? When you think about exercising or changing your diet, what does that make you feel? And so I'm going to get some sense of, how do I feel about it? Maybe there's some sadness because I can't have my favorite cheese again. Or maybe there's excitement because I like to exercise. Or maybe I had a knee injury and I had surgery and I haven't really been able to run since. Maybe there's some anxiety because, well, how am I going to do it? Because, I'm not running anymore. So listen to what your body has to tell you. And now comes the unconscious. And the unconscious is definitely the hardest part of the brain to get into alignment with. I look at the unconscious as that 90% of the iceberg that we can't see. And it's a little bit like, I want to change, and it's like the Titanic. I even though I have all my systems and I should know better, there comes the iceberg, boom, I run into it, and then I sink. So the unconscious, in order for me to get in touch with the unconscious, I use something called muscle testing. Muscle testing is a 2,000-year-old technique that comes to us from China. And for me, it's the greatest way to get information about what is going on with my unconscious. And I use it in my coaching because it's fast, it's reliable. You have to be good at it. So it's like, got to practice it, but it gives you incredible information and it allows you to really distill it down to, oh, this is what's going on with me and this is what I need to change, or this is what's stopping me and blocking me. So I'm a big fan. Okay, so but what are other ways for me to get in touch with my my reptilian brain? Some people will get information about their reptilian brain through their dreams. Okay, so you're dreaming something, and if you actually have a journal right by your bed and you write it down, there will be a lot of information for you that you can actually use. There's other ways for you to get in touch with it. You can do regression therapy. You can also journal and try to take it to a deeper level, really like drill real deep down inside yourself. You can also watch yourself, observe yourself. A lot of people get psychosomatic symptoms, and those are really, really, really good signs and messages for you to see where you're misaligned and what's going on regarding change. Oftentimes, again, what we do is we shoot the messenger. So, I have a backache, boom, what am I going to do? I'm going to take a pill. I have a headache, I'm going to take a pill, rather than actually sitting down and figuring out what's going on. So those are some of the ways that you can get some information about what's going on with your unconscious. Now, what can you do to make it easier to change? So first of all, alignment is the most, for me, the most powerful way to foster change, meaning if my reptilian, my limbic system, and my neocortex are all in alignment with one another, for me, it's the fastest way to change. I do this with my neuro-emotional coaching. I've worked with thousands of people, tens of thousands of hours. The results are amazing. What can you do to make it easier? What can you do to make it easier for you to change? Okay, first of all, you can change your attitude. We can move ourselves from being a victim to choosing it. I don't like taking out the garbage, but what choice do I have? I can complain about it, or I can say, I'm choosing to take out the garbage because if I don't take out the garbage, my kitchen is going to smell. So I'm choosing it. Or I can say, I am choosing to lose weight because if I don't, I'm going to be stuck with all the clothes that don't fit me, or I'm going to be not feeling healthy and vital. So I'm choosing to change. You can do this with COVID. I am choosing to change and follow the laws, because if I don't, I might not feel good with myself. I might be a threat to somebody else, or whatever it is that's true for you. Second, whatever you do with change, usually there are judgments involved, meaning judgments about ourselves because we are not able to do it as fast or as good as we want. And there are judgment about the situation. Why does it have to be this way? And I can't believe they are doing this way. And I'd look at the news, and forgiveness is always an option. You can forgive yourself for the lack of change, or for your inability to change as fast as you would like, or anything else that you judge. It's simple. You can actually go on my website and you can find some information about it, or you can write to me, put it in the chat. I'm happy to tell you the forgiveness statements I use. I forgive myself for judging myself, filling the blank, or I forgive myself for judging Peter for XYZ. So it's important that you forgive the judgment. Make sure that your goal is 50% realistic. I don't want to really not have good chances right from the get-go. So if my goal is not at least 50% realistic, my change, because change always involves goal, then, why do it? Make sure that it's realistic. If I all of a sudden wanted to be 8 foot tall, 8 feet tall. I'm 5'2". It's super unrealistic. As a matter of fact, any of those things, that nature has provided us with, I would stay away from. Let's put it that way. Align your values and your goals. I talked about this earlier. So oftentimes, really, change is difficult because we haven't aligned the values and our goals, the old ones with the new ones. So, change brings new values and new goals and new intentions. So we want to make sure that they're all aligned and that I don't have a mismatch, because if I do, it really makes it difficult. Take micro steps. When I want to successfully change, I want to make baby steps, micro steps, because if I make big steps, I won't be able to keep up. Maybe I can make 10, 20, 50, 100 big steps, but eventually I'm going to run out of gas. But if I make little steps, I'm going to be successful every time. So, a little change will go a long way. And then eventually, if you've changed a little bit over time, you will have big change. So we want to have micro steps. Use affirmations. Affirmations, I talk about this. A lot of people talk about this. Affirmations change your neuroplasticity, meaning they change the way that you look at yourself. For a lot of people, you really, really, really have to work your affirmation, and you have to do it consistently, because the other message of I'm not good enough, or I can't do it, or this is too slow, or I will never be, is so intense and so loud, and it's so ingrained in our consciousness that we really have to work hard to change it. So make sure that if you do affirmations, that you use it consistently and that you commit to it for at least 30 days. Put yourself in places that will be supportive. I consider you listening tonight as a way to support you to support yourself. There are groups out there. I am part of a 30-day morning community that comes from inside Cyprus. You can also find information about it on my Facebook page, or just write to me and I'll connect you. And be careful who your friends are. Who are you surrounding yourself with? Are those people who embrace change, or do they live their life as a victim? So make wise choices, and so that you really can be in an environment that's supportive to you. Okay, so what did we talk about tonight? We talked about change and why it's important for us to embrace it and choose it. And we also looked at and understood why it's difficult. And we looked to see where we could find the answers. And the answer can be found in the unconscious part of your brain, the reptilian. When all parts of your brain, the neocortex, smart brain, the limbic, the emotional part of the brain, and the reptilian brain, the fight, flight, or freeze, are in alignment with one another, you will actually be incredibly successful. You'll be able to do things that you will have never been able to do before. You will change rapidly. You will change permanently. And you will experience yourself in a whole new way. So I thank you for joining me tonight. If any of this sounds interesting to you, if you would like to experience neuroemotional coaching, let me know, and I'll be happy to get in touch with you. So take care, have an amazing day, and I'll see you next week.